When we hear the word reincarnation, we often think about Eastern religions. In particular, we think about perhaps Hinduism and Buddhism, amongst others. But rarely do we think about the Greeks and Romans or some Jews and early Christians believing this particular mortal life is not all that there is, but that the soul continues and enters into further lifetimes within a literal physical body. This evening, we will be investigating beliefs in reincarnation within the context of both the East and the West. We will decipher the very evidence for such beliefs and offer explanations for why they developed or were realized based upon your perspective. You will journey all over the world, comparing different perspectives on reincarnation. You will realize there's more diversity to beliefs regarding living multiple lifetimes than is commonly taught. You will actually start to see certain patterns, consistent patterns, all across the world to the point where it gets a little bit scary. Remember, this lecture will be from an academic, historical point of view. This is not a faith-based perspective. So, whatever your beliefs on the topic, you are mostly certainly welcome. I promise that this talk will be both informative and perhaps a little bit entertaining. So, I'll say it again. This is just simply reporting the news, okay, about different perspectives and different beliefs. So, I'm not trying to assert a perspective, but the word reincarnation itself, this word derives from the Latin and literally means entering the flesh again. Reincarnation, carnus, right? Carnivore, right? Um, and so, and roughly, it is the equivalent to the Greek word metempsychosis, which translates as the transmigration of the soul. The Greeks also used another word for reincarnation, and that is palingenesis, which means being born again. Okay, so accordingly, according to modern polls, we'll go through this. There are roughly, because I was looking over different perspectives, and there's roughly about maybe 10 reasons why people tend to believe in reincarnation. Now, once again, I'm not saying that this is fact, but I'm saying these are typical reasons why people believe in reincarnation. First of all, there are those deja vu moments, moments where you feel like you've been at a certain place before a certain time, but cognitively you haven't. And furthermore, that you have knowledge concerning this place that you could not have gained from your own experiences. Of course, deja vu is a larger canvas of an idea, but this is one of the instances. Deja vu also connects with this sudden recollection of an event that you have while experiencing something supposedly for the first time in life. You're going, wow, I've had this. Have had this kind of ice cream before, or I don't know. I feel like I've been to this place before, but this place is thousands of miles from my home, or there's something familiar about this, or something familiar about that, and yet you hadn't had that experience before, at least your own recollection in this life. Second, number two, having phobias of things that you have no reason to be afraid of. And sometimes a very irrational fear that lies outside of typical fears. I know someone, for example, who is petrified of domes. Domes. That's right. Anything that has a dome, whether it be an observatory or a building or simply a dome-like helmet. Some people are afraid of dark water. It's just they just can't handle it. Look at the water. Oh, I can't take it. So maybe some people will say that it connects with a tragic, a traumatic event that you had uh, just before you departed the previous life. Maybe you were dying and you were in the midst of drowning within some dark water, you know? And of course, obviously, if you're drowning is another one, right? So there's many instances. I know many of you are connecting with this. Now, third, another reason is those who have very specific interests or hobbies or even obsessions, right? And these obsessions and ideas happen right from earliest childhood on, and that are they appear to be very well developed. And so this is viewed as evidence of perhaps a past life. On those who became completely in love with an area of interest as soon as they are exposed to it, there seems to be maybe some previous draw to acclimate towards these kinds of ideas or experiences. Sometimes we are drawn to a specific interest in an era of history, such as the ancient world or the Civil War, right? And we wish to immerse ourselves as much as possible in books or film or other kind of media related to this time and place. Maybe these are memories of being at this time and place, right? Many people who are into cosplay, many people are into dressing up in old-fashioned outfits and role playing. Perhaps this is connected to some familiarity, perhaps not. I'm just throwing these one out. So there you have it. Fourth, there are there are of course cases of children who have memories of places and people and events that directly correspond with the past, and even specific individuals that they could not have a knowledge otherwise. After studying the mental development of over 3,000 children, the psychiatrist by the name of Dr. Ian Stevenson, who lived from 1918 to 2007, asserted that most children between the ages of 4 to 10 had memories that were from outside of their own experience, often of places they've never seen before in this life, and recollecting people they've never met. So, of course, the idea is that these children suddenly will talk about ideas and places and things, and they will write about it, or they will draw images and pictures, and the parents are going, I have no idea where they're getting these ideas. These are crazy. And they'll talk about these events. So that's another one. Number five. Often those who try to explain child prodigies revert to explaining this was in connection to someone in the past life that has a particular talent. Somebody, person is like, 2 or 3 years old, and they're able to suddenly play the piano, or able to just naturally, work with certain gifts. They're able to be a fashion designer at the ages of 4 or 5. I mean, these things do happen. Number six, it's called xenoglossia. Xenoglossia is the ability to speak a language fluently without any past training all at once. This is viewed as perhaps surfacing from a past life that an earlier person may have used this language. You'll have somebody who's 2 or 3 years old, and they're speaking fluent French or German, and nobody ever taught them. So where's that coming from? Number seven, many view the memories arising through hypnotic regression as arising from actual past life. So past life regression. Number eight, birthmarks corresponding to places where the child recollects where they were killed or injured in the past life. I mean, these are all suggestions. Number nine, homosexual or transgender tendencies are often perceived as evidence that the person was the opposite sex in the past life. And so this is one of the explanations for this too. Number 10, finally, the intensive study by the psychiatrist by the name of Dr. Helen Wambach, 1932 to 1985. She took memories from people who supposedly lived past lives in earlier eras and compared them with very real demographic studies to realize they often match detail by detail the context of those times, which would typically prove impossible. This seemed to prove that these memories could not be manufactured. So, so yeah, I mean, these are reasons. Now, I'm not endorsing these reasons. I'm not saying these reasons are true or are not true. I'm just went around and looked at the general public and what they're saying. And again, this is what I came up with. For people to say, well, why we believe reincarnation outside of specifically a historical context of the story. Got it? Okay. Why bring up these top three, sorry, these top modern reasons for the belief in reincarnation? Well, the human mind in its overall development has not changed all that much in the last 6,000 years. And so some of these points would have been experienced by them too. And we do know that this is talked about, even some of these ideas amongst the Greeks and Romans, as well as Hindus, which we will go into in detail. Don't worry. That's why you're here, right? So the belief that someone who acted exactly the same way as someone who lived before was often viewed as that person simply coming back. He acts like him. He may look like him. Maybe it is him. And so you're going to have Alexander the Great. How's this for an example? They believe that he is just like Achilles. He must be Achilles, and he came back again. That's what I'm saying. Wait, that's a Greek example. Uh huh. Are you guys getting this already? So, this is a very common idea. Without question, belief in reincarnation in all of its manifest varieties spans the entire globe. It occurs quite early on on most continents, whether Europe or Asia or Africa or the Americas. Now, dating this phenomena is a little bit tricky. For while many non-literate ancient peoples must have believed in reincarnation, as their later descendants did, as evidenced through oral culture, it is difficult to find exactly when such beliefs came into play because of a lack of direct material evidence. This is not the case with regions where literacy did occur, where, of course, obviously we have much in the way that demonstrates these ideas. We even see some of them in the Fertile Crescent region during the Bronze Age, roughly around 1200 BCE. Because the beliefs in reincarnation was spread over such vast areas and appeared to occur in almost an autochthonic manner, from the Celts in the west to the Iranians in the east, some scholars have surmised that the belief in reincarnation was a basic aspect of Indo-European religions, in their specifically their beliefs. So as they spread from the Caucasus to Europe in the west and to Persia and India in the east, starting around 5000 BCE, they simply brought this belief with them. The problem is that such a belief is not evident with the arrival of the Indo-Europeans in India around 1500 BCE. But I mean, it's not overt. There's some hints. We'll talk about those hints in a little bit. But we do see something more direct in the Upanishads dating between 700 to 500 BCE. So once again, it's difficult. Let's go to the first image here. But there is a more obvious explanation for reincarnation, and this is related to the agricultural wheel of the year. For while spring brings life to thrive, and this life moves on through the summer, come fall, nature seems to die and pass on during the winter, and then, of course, be reborn again with the next spring. So, if this is true with plant life, with the agricultural circle, why not human life as well? So, we are going to see all around the world this focus upon the wheel of life. The wheel of going from the time where you have the springtime, which will be connected to springtime with life, and the summer of thriving, to the fall and to the winter. And so, if life is this way in the vegetative world, perhaps it is the same. Perhaps it is at least similar with human life. And so, this is happens to be one of the theories, one of the popular theories. Okay, so let's go to the next image. So let's go to Hinduism, okay? A possible reference to reincarnation may be found in the Rig Veda, which is composed between 1500 to 1100 BCE. The Rig Veda states as follows. It says, "Burn him not up, nor quite consume him, Agni," which is who this is, the god of fire, of sacrifice. "Let not his body or his skin be scattered, O Jatavetas. When thou hast matured him, then send him on his way unto the fathers. Let thy fierce flame, thy glowing splendor, burn him with thine auspicious forms, O Jatavetas. Bear this man to the region of the pious. Again, O Agni, to the fathers, send him who, offered in thee, goes with our oblation, wearing new life. Let him increase his offspring. Let him rejoin a body, Jatavetas." So this does appear, it does appear that to refer to reincarnation in the Rig Vedas. Let's look at me for just a little bit here. So this is a possibility. Okay. The first direct evidence of reincarnation in Hinduism is found in the Upanishads. This is the transitional Vedic text that spans from the era of Brahmanism to the time of the Shramanas. These are the wandering religious ascetics who brought with them the ideas that personal belief matters in the grand scheme of things. These traveling salespeople of religious ideals, crossing over the various roads spanning from India and going towards Persia and Europe in one direction, and towards China the other direction. This is during the Axial Age. And so they come up with these ideas that it's important to have an individual faith. It's not all about working with the communities, but it's important to have a personal relationship with your respective god or goddess. And so these shramanas would go around. It's interesting that a little bit of aside is that between 700 to 500 BCE, during this period of time, when the shramanas are going about during this axial age, we have the birth of so many religions. The Brahmanism will, in a sense, die and give birth to three religions around the 500s BCE, that being Hinduism, Buddhism, and Jainism, right? And then you cross over towards the West, And around 700, you have, of course, Zoroastrianism. You continue on, of course, Zoroastrianism spreads along these routes. A little further on, you have the Babylonian captivity of Judaism in the 500s, where you get like the five fundamentals of Judaism that we focused on, like monotheism, the idea that that the Jews are the chosen people, the idea of the focus in on the Torah, the idea of circumcision will be cemented to everybody, and of course, obviously dietary rules, and then of course in the 500s you go all the way. Guess what? To Asia Minor, to where the birth of Greek philosophy, also during the 500s, and then of course if you go east during the 500s. You have, of course, obviously you have Buddha during the 500s. But you go east, you have who? Lao Tzu and Taoism during the 500s. You have Confucius and Confucianism. So this is the era to be. But the idea is focus on the individual responsibility. And this is where reincarnation really kind of jumps in. And you'll see that in just a few moments. So what happens is these wandering mystics, these philosophers, they will talk about the fact that, yeah, religion is a very personal matter, and that actions have specific rewards. They also have specific punishments. That each person lives more than one lifetime. The Upanishads state as follows. It says, the wise soul is not born, nor does it die. This one has not come from anywhere, nor has it become anyone. Unborn, eternal, constant, primal, this one is not killed when the body is killed. Upanishads 2. And again, know the soul as the Lord of the chariot, the body as the chariot, knowing the intuition as the chariot driver, and the mind as the reins. So in Hinduism, reincarnation is directly connected to three concepts, that of samsara, karma, and moksha. Okay, so once again, it is connected to samsara, karma, and moksha. Now let's go to the next image. Now, samsara, literally, you see here, Krishna states in the Bhagavad Gita that as the soul passes in this body through childhood, youth, and old age, it also passes through death and takes rebirth in another body. The only thing that accompanies us into a new life is the character we have built up. The word samsara literally means continuous flow and is the wheel that moves souls through a continuous flow of birth, of life, of death, and rebirth. The wheel rolling that makes the transmigration of souls possible. But samsara refers to more than the bondage of birth, death, and rebirth. It is metempsychosis, for it represents the series of rebirths in different situations experienced by the individual soul, that is, right, accompanying to the laws that are known as karma. On the cosmic plane, it refers to the ever returning cycle of creation and reabsorption. This wheel of life includes all humans and animals, and even gods within some Eastern belief systems. As this wheel rolls along with every life tied to it, all rewards and punishments turn with this wheel as well. God or the gods can cheer or jeer all they wish. They may support and derail your attempts to progress in life here and there. But ultimately, in the grand scheme of things related to the release from the wheel of life, there's no higher power to be petitioned for help, to ask for mercy, to forgive your sins, to allow you grace. For the power of where you end up resides within yourself and stops there. Let's look at me. Did you hear that? Right? So in Hinduism, right? Right? So there is no higher power to be petitioned for help, to ask for mercy, to forgive your sins, to show you grace. For the power of where you end up resides within yourself. The buck stops there. You as an individual, as opposed to the collective of everyone else, you're the one in control. The wheel has no friends. The wheel has no enemies. It cannot be rationalized. It cannot be bribed or cheated or tricked or act completely as an impartial judge. You ride the wheel under your own guidance or control, in a sense. But understanding those control mechanisms is not as easy as it sounds. In fact, the pressure mounts to get it right. For if you screw up, your present life may suffer, and your next life or lives could be indeed far worse. So let's look at the next image. So there you have it. So you see here, the cycle is called samsara. Here's an example of this, right? And of course, we have, according to Hinduism, our soul is called an Atman, right? And so it carries our karma from one to the next. All living things have a soul. So you can see how this works. Our actions on the wheel lead to karma. Good actions lead to good things. Consequences of bad actions lead to bad consequences. Let's take it down. So what will happen is basically is as follows. When somebody comes up to you and they say, "Hey, hope you get karma for that." The reality is karma is simply action. So karma, I know we've been in the West, we kind of messed up a little bit. We think karma is always bad. No, karma can be good and karma can be bad. So the way to look at this, I'm going to give an example. I'm going to be using my hands for a few seconds. Here's samsara. So you're born, you live your life, and you do good karma, and when you die, the next time you move a little far further up and you become more spiritual, more enlightened. You are born to a better life. Many Indians believe you're born to a better caste. You're moving up. Now, let's just say you do good. You're born, you live your life, you do good karma, and the next time you go up higher, 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 good karma, and eventually you're released. Moksha, which is nirvana in Buddhism. Moksha is the release from this physical realm. You are out of here. Now let's just say you do you're bad. So let's say you live your life, you're born, you live your life, you do bad karma, you die, you move down. You live your life, you do bad karma, you're down. And you keep doing it, and you become more physical, more mundane, more brutish, more connected to the appetites, more hunger and lust and desire, and you just become. If you go the other way, you become more enlightened, intelligent, amazing, and on the way down, you just kind of go, and then you become. Of course, Hindus have different perspectives. You could be born into lower animals, or you could just become part of the mire of the material world, and you sink into like nothingness, right? And you're going, okay. So the thing is that you do this. So what happens? How come people don't get out so quick, according to Hindus? Well, it's kind of like when your Apple computer just has to kind of think for a while. This is what happens. So it's like you kind of go, okay, I'm going to be good. I'm going to be bad. Next time, I'm going to be good. I'm going to be bad. And it just back, forth, back, forth, back, forth. And after a while, just like, see people just get caught in the it's just kind of buffering, right? It's like we're stuck, you're not moving up, you're not moving down. Each life you kind of do some good things, you move up, and the next life you do a lot more bad things, you move down, and just back and forth, and that's the explanation. And so so if you have, of course, you do proper things. You learn, of course, the Bhagavad Gita, the Ramayana. You learn the Upanishads. You learn the sacred writings, but you also learn how to live your life in general. You follow the four yogas. You use one or all of them. You can actually get out of here quicker. So this is kind of how things work. So, and what is the role of karma? Let's go in there a little bit. How is karma involved? As I said, in samsara, it is a process, of course, of birth, life, death, and rebirth. As I said, karma is any action or deed that triggers the cause and effect motions within the wheel of life. In samsara, of course, you have karma kind of keeps that wheel moving. Karma is the belief that what you do affects where you go automatically in this and the next life. Karma is, according to Hindus, the tally of good and bad deeds that will decide your status in the next life, with good deeds leading to a higher, happier, and healthier next life, and bad deeds leading to a lower, unhappy, and unhealthy next life. Karma is determined that the status of the individual's future lives, even to the point where you may reincarnate, as I said, less than human, which is not very desirable. Religion, of course, in general, between 700 to 500 BC, while still having a public aspect, began to gain a very personal aspect too, with each individual now directly responsible for their fate, able to free themselves from samsara, from the wheel of rebirth. They could also legitimately personalize their form of worship too, with these various forms each being effective based upon the inner intent rather than the outer action. As a result, there were many legitimate pursuits and ways to be free from samsara and to gain moksha based upon the individual. So there existed many paths, but one summit for Hindus. For some, release was through ascetic practice. For others, it could be through love or pleasure, through family life. Such liberation could even come by material gain if honestly acquired. As a result, in this innovation, Hinduism permitted one to embrace a life of pleasure if they so desired, or of materialistic pursuits. Earthly desires were not taboo. You didn't have to be an ascetic living a crumb of bread or a rice a day. You could enjoy a lavish meal and not feel guilty. Naturally, this change drew in many adherents. Of course, Buddhism was more of the middle way, a little bit more harsh. But let's go into the four yogas, the next image. So I like this. I just like the way because it's just the image. So there are four major paths of yoga. The four paths of yoga are different ways to grow spiritually and understand your true self. Each path suits different personality types and approaches to life outlined in the Bhagavad Gita. So you see here you have karma yoga, you have Raja yoga, you have Jnana yoga, and Bhakti yoga. Let's go to the next. These are the four basic ways. So basically, the word yoga. When you hear the word yoga, many are thinking of the Western concept of it. Oh, let's look at me for a few seconds. We'll go back to this exact same chart. I just want to use my hands a little bit. Thank you, Archie. So when it comes to yoga, the word yoga is an Indo-European word and has the same root as the word yoke. Like an egg? No, more like a yoke as that goes around a beast of burden's head. And so the idea is a yoke goes around the neck of a beast of burden and enables them to be able to plow a field straight with perhaps another beast of burden, or to go around and grind grain. And so what the yoke does is it forces this animal to follow a discipline. And so yoga means discipline. So there are four disciplines that you can follow. And so this is where we go. So go back to the chart. I just wanted to explain what yoga means. Yes. So I like starting with Raja Yoga, actually. So Raja Yoga is basically the path of meditation and self-control, focused on mastering the mind and achieving a state of peace through mindfulness and concentration. This path emphasizes the use of mental discipline to still the mind and achieve enlightenment. And so the idea is this is the one that is brought to the West. This is the one that you do the breathing. This is the one where you do the meditation. This is where you still the mirror of your soul, like because before you picture it as like a turbulent ocean, now you picture it as a mirror, like a still lake, and then the light of illumination bounces upon it, and you go through transformation. So the idea is you're using your body, your physical body, to achieve a higher place. What this will do is this particular practice, all four practices, will enable you to go up in the next life. So when you reincarnate in the next life, it'll also improve your current life. When you go up in the next life, you keep practicing, you'll go up, 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 and out, moksha, and you'll be out free from the wheel of birth, life, death, rebirth, reincarnation. So that is the Raja Yoga. The next one I'm going to do is Karma Yoga. Karma Yoga is the path of selfless action, focused on performing actions for the benefit of others and the world rather than for personal gain. This path emphasizes the importance of selflessness, service, and acting according to Dharma, the cosmic law underlying, of course, the individual conduct. So while Raja Yoga really appeals to those who are more sport oriented, more physical oriented, more, hey, we like appeal to people who love to exercise, to run, to jog, to, buffet their bodies. Well, Karma Yoga is more for it's more for the busy person. It's more for Hindus. It's more for the lawyers and the doctors, those people who are active in life. And so what they will do is they'll earn a living. What they will do is take a portion of the material earnings and they will give to others. It's through actions. It's being generous. It's helping others. Of course, anybody can do karma yoga, but it's basically doing good deeds, doing good actions. And that is the path to freedom. And this is how you move up through this particular path. The next one is the Jnana Yoga. Jnana Yoga, as opposed to the path of meditation, the path of action, which is Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga is the path of knowledge. This is the path of knowledge is about, of course, knowledge and self-inquiry, focus on developing wisdom and seeking the truth of who am I with a guru's aid. This path emphasizes distinguishing what is real from the illusion of our self-limiting thoughts and perceptions in order to unite with the inner self. This is using the mind. This is using our thoughts to move up through the system, right? This is for the eggheads. This is for the teachers. This is for the intellectuals. This is for the followers of Sarasvati, right? This is for those people who see knowledge as the key, unlocking the wisdom of the universe and trying to understand it. So this is Jnana Yoga. A lot of Hindus say this is the quickest way to be free of the material realm, to be free of the wheel of samsara, and to gain moksha in a very quick order. So now it's interesting because the Raja Yoga, which is the path of meditation, you focus on yourself. When it comes to Karma Yoga, it's a path of action. Once again, you're doing it. When it comes to Jnana Yoga, it is a path of knowledge. Again, the focus is on you, but Bhakti Yoga is very different. Bhakti Yoga is the path of devotion. So as opposed to going inward, as we see in Raja Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Karma Yoga, it's the idea that we go through a transformation by focusing on something that is outward. from us through worship and through love. It is the path of loving devotion towards a personal God or goddess, focused on cultivating a deep connection to a higher power through practices such as prayer and service. This path emphasizes cultivating positive feelings to achieve inner peace and merge the individual self with the divine. So this is loving, for example, focusing on Krishna, who is an incarnation of Vishnu, or focusing on, praying and worshiping Lakshmi or Kali or whatever, Shiva. But you're Parvati, but the idea is that you're focusing outward towards a god or goddess, and that worship is what purifies you. Okay, so you kind of get the idea of how these kind of operate. Let's look at me for a few seconds. What I find is interesting in this is that therefore, in Hinduism, you have, in a sense, four major ways based upon your personality type. So to gain liberation. So for Hindus, you should have an excuse because you're going, well, I can't do meditation, but can you do good actions? Well, I guess I can do that. Or I'm just not a emotional feel. I am, but emotionally feely kind of person. I don't think bhakti yoga is for me. Are you more of an intellectual? Yeah, well, you got jnana yoga. So it fits all the different kind of personality types, so that apparently nobody has an excuse. You do have some Hindus who are overachievers. They go, I'm going to do all of them. Sure, why not? But there you have it. This is how you roll. And of course, this has everything to do with reincarnation, right? It's the idea of being free of these multiple lives, right? Um, now, in Hinduism, of course, every action that we do causes karma, good or bad, as I said. And so everything we say, think, or do causes the accumulation of this cosmic force in our lives. Annie Della Poccola observed that the word karma can mean action, it could also mean ritual action and sacrifice. And that originally the meaning was neutral, referring to the practice of rituals and other religious observances. However, eventually karma was identified with what is called dharma, with religious duty, and so became associated with the good and bad intentions behind an action, which eventually influences the performer's life in a positive, negative way. Now, karma comes in three flavors, according to Hindu texts. Let's go to the chart here. First, you have what's called uh, Sanchita karma. And so we have Sanchita karma. And so basically, Sanchita karma, this is strictly speaking accumulated karma, the sum of all actions, both good and bad, from the individual soul's past lives that have continued into this present lifetime. So this is Sachita is what brought you to where you are right now, right? And so the next one, the second kind of karma, is called Prarabdha karma. Prarabdha is also known as operative or fruit bearing karma. This refers to the karma from a past life that has ripened in this present life and appears to stand out as important, possibly needing to be addressed. And if it's bad, may create difficulties in this life that necessitates immediate changes. Okay, so you can see this is, so you got to be very careful. This is one of those things where you come across something, some event, or some person, or some situation, or some realization, and you have to do something. It stands as a opportunity or a stumbling block. And so this, of course, is prarabdha. It's ripened in this life. And if you don't deal with it right now, right away, it's going to automatically affect your next life. And so it could be positive. It could be something you've done all these wonderful things, and all of a sudden you get that college scholarship. That's a fruit bearing because you were so good in the past life, you've earned it in this life. Well, you better take it. Or it could be something where you cheated your taxes in the previous life, and all of a sudden you're going to have to pay in a whole bunch of extra taxes. Does that make sense? So it ripens now, right? Once again, the next one after Parabda is you have Krayana karma. This is all the karma that we reap in this present life that could affect our future life. For whatever is reaped in this life naturally flows back into Sanchita karma. And of course, you do have Agni or potential karma. And that's another category too. But we don't have a lot of time specifically to go through that one. But you get the idea. Now, uh, next image. Well, this is Yama. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that when a person dies, it's like discarding old clothes and then putting on new ones, with the clothes representing the body, of course. According to the Garuda Purana, when the subtle body is leaving the physical body, which is known as death, the messengers of Yama arrive on the scene. By the way, you're looking at Yama right here, who is, of course, the god of the underworld in Hinduism. When the subtle body finally comes out of the physical body, causing death of the physical body, says the Garuda Purana, the subtle body is still able to see the entire universe. The departed soul could see the messengers of Yama and the attendants of Lord Vishnu. This means that the soul can see both good and bad, and the departed soul begins its journey according to its karma. A subtle body, which has a bad karmic account, feels for its sins at this stage. A soul has to travel the entire distance to reach the world of Yama. The path becomes rough for the sinners, and the path becomes uncomfortable, so it becomes very comfortable for the virtuous. The Lord then begins to describe Yama, that he has four arms, holding a conch, a discus, a bow, and a staff. He treats the virtuous with respect and sinners with rudeness. He hits the sinners with iron rod and club. He sits on a buffalo. His body appears dreadful to sinners, but radiant to the virtuous. The soul is in the size of one's thumb. And then, of course, it actually goes and describes your soul is the size of your thumb. And it explains this. It means the subtle body. Soul and the subtle body always travel together. The subtle body is pushed out of the physical body by air. The subtle body cries out when it comes out of the physical body. Now he continues. It is said that one should not boast of his body, as it is liable to death and decay. The purpose of acquiring wealth is charity. Purpose of speech is to say the truth. Purpose of body is spirituality. The subtle bodies of those who do not follow the virtuous path are tortured by the messengers of Yama on the way to Yama's place. So there you have it. So you're going in between lives. You mean in between each of your reincarnation, there's something that goes on. You don't simply die and then go directly to the next life. Rarely does that happen in any belief system within reincarnation. You're going to come up across a pattern in a little bit. So let's talk about what happens when you die. Next image. So what happens is this right here, this is a pinda. This is basically a ball of cooked rice that's offered to the ancestors. It's mixed with ghee and sometimes has sesame seeds. This is meant to feed ancestors, but others as well, according to the same source. Krishna proceeds, Vishnu proceeds to explain the purpose of the six pindas. These are offerings. The first one is offered at the doorway where the departed soul is called as Pantha. Pantha means wandering. The pinda offered here satisfies those deities that dwell at the entrance door. It is believed that some deities reside at the main entrance door of a house. It is always ideal to offer incense sticks at the entrance door. A conch with anti-clockwise lines tied on a yellow cloth above the main door frame is said to ward off evil spirits entering through the main door. So exiting the body through the door is very important. Next image. In the courtyard of the building lives the Kikera or the Gandharva. So as the body goes to the courtyard, there is a celestial being that is there that's likened to like angels or fairies. This is a positive one as you go through the courtyard. Next image. The third pinda should be offered. The third offering of this rice ball is to be offered to Buddha at the resting place. A Buddha is considered a demigod. And so here's an example of some Buddhas here. Next image. The fourth pinda is offered to the Pasaka. This is said to be the flesh eating demon. And so this is, of course, the idea that, of course, obviously rigor mortis is setting in, but also correlated toward putrefaction here. And also, next image, also rakshas are there. So watch out when you get outside of the main courtyard. You got a flesh-eating demon there that you have to make an offering so that the body will not spoil ahead of its time. And then you have to watch out for the rakshas, meaning evil demons, because we don't want it to steer that soul into a bad place. And the next one is you also want to give offering, the next image, to the yakshas. These are supernatural beings said to be attendants of Kubra. And so the idea here, of course, is that you give them offering because they're going to do something positive, because they represent nature, as you can see with the trees. So basically these three are said to preserve the sanctity of the dead body until it's completely burned. The fifth pinda is offered at the side of the pyre where the dead body is placed. The dead body is now known as preta. Because of these five pindas, the preta attains purity to the place on the fire. Fire is considered very sacred. As you know, the Vedas talk about worshiping Agni, who is the fire god, more than any other god. By satisfying the above referred to non-human characters, this preta attains purity to be offered it to the fires. The funeral pyre should be lit from the eastern side. Once the body is completely burnt, the remains of the bones are collected, and during this time, the sixth pinda, the sixth rice offering, is offered. The ashes are then immersed in the sea or river. At the southern part of the house, a pit is made, and for the next 10 days, pindas are offered here daily along with milk and water. There is no specific mantra or any specific rites while offering these pindas. The pindas offered during the 10-day period is divided into 4 parts. 2 parts build up a new body for the dead. Did you guys catch that? Right? 2 parts build up a new body for the dead. The third part goes to Yama's servants, and the fourth is consumed by the preta. And so this is the beginning of the preparation for the next body. See how this works? The subtle body gets proper shape in 3 days and 3 nights. And on the 10th day, the subtle body develops hunger. Oftentimes, it is believed that the soul, I should say, kind of is around for 3 days. This is an idea that we see all around the world. We even see this in aspects of Judaism. This is why they waited for Lazarus for the 4th day until he stinketh, because if he came back within 3 days, maybe less than 3 days, maybe he wasn't really dead. This is, of course, connected to the 3 days of Jesus, right? The resurrection of the dead. So this 3 day kind of thing is not just in Hinduism. Anyway, so the son of body gets its proper shape in 3 days and 3 nights, and on the 10th day, the son of body develops hunger. Irrespective of other offerings made to the Preta, which is the son of body of the dead, it's always called the Preta, it gets satisfied only by offering flesh, although normally it's a piece of banana instead of flesh. During the 11th and 12th days ceremonies, the Preta eats as much as possible. On the 13th day, the soul's journey begins to the world of Yama, dragged by the servants of Yama. During its journey, the soul regrets every action it did that's evil. And so what will happen, here we go. So this next body is already being prepared. According to the Garuda Purana, there is a temporary place between the last life and the future one, where one either faces punishments for their bad karma or receives rewards for their good karma. The Hindus, of course, have a hell that's known as a Naraka, while the positive realm for the righteous by Hindus is known as the Svarga. So, what is a Naraka? So we have to realize in between each successive lifetime. Here's the image of the Narakas. This is a terrible place of darkness where you go to pay for your karmic sins and consists of many separate little hells to suit specific offenses. The god Yama is in charge of the Narakas and metes out punishments to fit the crime. In some cases, he will pour boiling oil over the unrighteous. While the soul is properly punished and purified, after that time, it is sent back and then it is reincarnated into another life. So it is purified. So, by the way, Hindus have various hells. The most amount I heard was 28 different hells, which is quite a few. So basically, what happens is that you arrive in the underworld, and Yama weighs your virtues and your vices, which is kind of like the weighing of your soul that you see both in Egyptian mythology and, of course, in Islam. Right? You have your virtues and vices are weighed out. If you are more virtuous than you are full of vice, you go to Svarga. If you are, I make it sound like a Russian drink. I'm sorry. If you have more vices and virtues, then you go to the Naraka. Both places, both realms are temporary. Okay. The Naraka is located beneath the earth. Some will say it's the southern part of the universe, below the cosmic waters. I'll give an example of some of this hells. I'm not going to give you all of the 28. That's just too many. But I'll just give you a few at random. You have a hell called Thomasra. This is if somebody grabs another person's wealth, you end up here. And in this particular realm, you are tied up in ropes, you're starved, and then you're beaten repeatedly over and over again. And another realm called the Anhat Misra, if you have deceived another person and you enjoyed their wife or their children, if you know what I mean, what will happen is that you are beaten to the point where you lose all intelligence and your ability to see. If you go to Ururava, this is, of course, if you care only about your family but nobody else, those who you hurt will turn into savage, snake-like beasts called ruras, who will then torture that person. So so Scrooge would be in big trouble, wouldn't he? Being attacked by these savage, snake-like beings, right? So there you have it. You have, of course, a Maha Rurava. Those people who indulge at another person's expense. These same ruras will slowly eat your flesh and will constantly eat your flesh. Kind of reminds me of Prometheus. The Kumaraka, this is a person who cooks birds and beasts alive. They are in turn cooked alive in boiling oil over and over again. And two more, you have Kala Sutra, murderers of Brahmins are burnt alive. And the Sandansas, these are basically somebody who steals from somebody, their body's torn apart by red hot iron balls and tongs. So you get the idea. And of course, you see the image here. So that's what happens in between lives. So you learn your lesson when you come back. Next image. So here's an example, another example of what you could experience in these narakas. So it makes this is of course connected to Krishna and divine justice. But what if you're good? Next image. Well, if you're good, you go to a place, Svarga. This is a place of happiness and bliss that is overseen by the god Indra, located just above Meru, which is the sacred mountain that's either located in the middle of the earth or in the middle of the cosmic ocean. Mount Meru is said to be 85 times larger than the Earth's diameter, so it's a kind of a big mountain. The righteous who are not yet ready for moksha reside here to wait out their lives in a pleasant place before returning to incarnate again. Many Hindus locate the spiritual abode of Svarga in the middle of the sun. It is rather curious that the Slavic god of sacred fire is known as Svarog, which could be a possible correlation. Next image. So it's a beautiful place. It's a bountiful place. It's a place of singing and music, of dancing. The capital is Amaravati, where there are basically the pillars are made of diamonds, the furniture gold, and there are pleasant breezes that carry the perfume of rose-colored flowers. So absolutely beautiful. So you can see what happens here. It just really depends on who you are. Next image, you can see again. This is a place of delight, a place where the gods dwell. Okay, so let's look at me for a little bit here. So you got it, right? So you got the idea. So basically, in Hinduism, yes, it is reincarnation, but you do get a heaven and hell in between each lifetime. Sometimes it is a split second of if you for example, if you're really good, you may spend 1,000 years or longer at a Svarga, enjoying life before you decide, hey, maybe it's time for me to reincarnate again. But if you're just kind of good, maybe you'll be there for a half a minute. So when it comes to Naraka, if you're kind of bad, you may be there for maybe a day or a few weeks, or you could be there for 1,000 or 10,000 years, and then you reincarnate. So maybe you'll learn your lesson, right? So you have punishment rewards in between the various lifetimes. Okay, so we get into Buddhism. The Buddhism, like Hinduism, there is a wheel of birth that is known as samsara, and it operates in exactly the same way. So let's see the next image. And so with good karma leading to release and bad karma, here we go, leading to continually suffering. Unlike Hinduism, Buddhism teaches that there is no actual soul, or Atman as they call it in Hinduism. So what is there to get reincarnated, right? Buddhists say instead that while there is not a spirit or soul or actual self, there does exist a stream of consciousness that connects one's life to the next, and calling this transition becoming again, the Puna Bhrav, they say in Sanskrit, or the Puna Bhrava, said in Pali. An even shorter word is bhava, which means becoming. Some Buddhists in the English speaking world like to use the word re becoming so as to communicate that this transformation is not set upon a defined soul, but rather a sense of consciousness, right? Okay, so uh, like um, like Hinduism, many forms of Buddhism have a temporary place of rewards and punishments. They also have a svarga. Let's go there. So there's a wonderful place that's a svarga, so you can go there. So if you do good things, that's where you go. But what if you do bad things? Well, guess what? They also have a place of punishment. Let's go to the next one, next image. That's right. So what happens is if one in the previous life commits harmful actions related to one's speech, conduct, or thinking, they may be reborn via their stream of consciousness in the next life as an animal, or will become a restless spirit, or worse still, will go to a hell-like abode. Conversely, if one performs good actions, as I mentioned, acts of compassion and generosity, they will experience a better life, or may even enter a heavenly realm. As in Hinduism, Buddhism, hell is called Naraka, yet in actuality there are 8 cold Narakas and 8 hot Narakas, all of them located deep underground. Of the cold Narakas, there are at first the Arbuda Naraka, which literally means blister, which is located on a frozen plain surrounded by ice mountains and constantly swept over by the blizzard winds. Do you want to go there? I don't know. Second is called Nerbarba Naraka, meaning blister burster, which is even more cold to the point where the blisters burst. Ooh. Third is the I know these monks seem to have nothing better to do because listen to this one. Third is called an atat naraka, meaning shivering, where you constantly shiver and make the ot sound with your mouth. Ot. Yeah. Okay. Fourth is the hahava naraka, which is a place of lamentation where you say ha ha in pain. I'm serious. This is fifth. You have the huhava naraka, where you're always chattering with your teeth, making the hoo hoo sound. The sixth place, known as the Uptala naraka, is the blue lotus naraka, where it is so cold that your skin turns blue. The seventh naraka is called Padma lotus, where it is so cold that the skin cracks open, leaving the person quite bloody. Finally, eighth is the Mahapadma, the great lotus naraka, is so cold that the entire body cracks to pieces so that there's nothing less left, and then reconstituted again and cracks and there's nothing left. So that's those cold narakas. Next image. Or you could go, you didn't know Buddhism had many forms of Buddhism had a hell, did you? Okay. Or you could go to the 8 hot narakas. The first is called the Sanjiva Naraka, where the ground is made of hot iron and heated by an immense fire below. And so those who go here are literally cooked if the molten metal of course happens to be there. By the way, they sometimes pour the molten metal in the person's mouth. You kind of see this also in the House of Pain and Zoroastrianism. You also see this in various gospels of hells in Christianity. The ones that not in the pseudo gospels. You're going to have the people tend to think of, well, it's pour molten lead down somebody's throat. That seems to be very common. So what happens is that when this happens, you're destroyed, but after you are destroyed, you're simply put back together again, and so the entire process will occur. This, of course, you have this almost this Prometheus kind of thing where the vulture or whatever the bird is will eat his entrails, and then it will heal, and then it'll go back and forth. The second place is called the Kala Sutra Naraka, meaning black thread. It's exactly the same as the Sanjiva Naraka, except now black lines are drawn upon your body so that the guard can cut you along these lines with either an axe or a fiery saw. The Samgasta Naraka, the third hot abode, is the crushing Naraka, where rocks crush you until you're completely flattened. The fourth place is called the Rurava, meaning screaming, where flames surround you and burn you until you can't stop screaming. The Maharudra is the fifth place, meaning great screaming, where animals known as Krabda torture you until you're screaming and then you slowly eat you alive. The sixth Naraka is called Tapa, where you are impaled upon fiery spears until flames burst out of your nose and nostrils, nose and mouth. And the seventh is the Pratatapa, where you are pierced with a trident over and over again. I get to the fifth, the sixth, eighth one, excuse me. The eighth one is called the Avisi, or the uninterrupted Naraka. This is really interesting, where you're roasted in an oven, accompanied by even worse sufferings that last for literally eons. Once you have gone through the other Narakas, you are purified and sent back into the world to reincarnate again and hopefully learn your lesson. But in some forms of Buddhism, you may be condemned to languish in Avisa, the very last hot hell, forever. Five reasons may bring you to suffer so severely in Avisa. First, if you intentionally murder your father, you are sent here. Second, if you intentionally murder your mother. Third, if you intentionally murdered an arhat or an enlightened one or a bodhisattva. Fourth, if you shed the blood of a Buddha. And fifth, you are sent to Avisi if you created a division in the Sangha, the community of the Buddhist monks and nuns. Next image. So you can see, it gets pretty dark. Okay, take that down. You get the point. I think you're getting the point already. So there's stuff that goes on, right? Tibetan Buddhism tells much about the place between death and reincarnation, explaining how those who die will suddenly be able to see the brilliant light of wisdom, which, if followed, will directly, will directly lead you to rebirth and into nirvana. But yet most souls do not follow this light because their former life and customs related to that life influence them, so that those who are used to following more of their natural impulses will not perceive this light correctly, while those who are fearful in life will fear this light, and so forth. So when you die, you do see, in many Buddhist practices, you will see a light. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. But accordingly, for some who are so self-absorbed, they're not going to understand it. They'll be confused. And for those who are more fearful, fear-based, they will want to run away. Of course, if one is really bad, they won't see anything. And of course, they'll be flung into one of the many narakas. The best thing for a soul to do is to think positively, to realize it does not have a body, and that the former life and its impulses have gone away. And perhaps then the light of wisdom will be discerned, and discerned clearly, and then followed. Also, asking one of the many Buddhas or Bodhisattvas along the way is recommended. And so there you have it. When a person is reincarnated, the fetus becomes aware of his previous life during the 26th week of its life, according to the Tibetan medical paintings from the 11th century. So basically, the previous lives of the 26th week of life, all those memories come about, but then they fade away. Now, before you're thinking, okay, that's great. So it looks like both in Hinduism and Buddhism, you got the wheel of life. They both have samsara. They both have karma. You have, of course, release, moksha, for Hindus to get out, for Buddhists as well as for Jains. Jainism is called nirvana, and you're released. Cool, okay? But the soul in Buddhism may not be ready to go. So what do we do here? So what happens is you have what's called Pure Land Buddhism. And Pure Land Buddhism, while intrinsically part of Mahayana Buddhism, emphasizes the pivotal role of Buddha and the Bodhisattvas as agents of salvation. Now, Pure Land refers to a celestial abode of purity, where the Buddha and the Bodhisattvas dwell. Let's go to the next image. The idea arose from the ancient Indian cosmology, telling of a spiritual continent. Next image. That's not where I want to go. That's better. Okay. A spiritual continent known as Atakuri, and sometimes accompanied by another spiritual continent known as Uttar Madra. Both of them sometimes believed to be real places located just over the Himalaya mountains and occupied by a mythic people, sometimes even thought to be the ultimate abode of the blessed souls, according to the Mahabharata. According to the Adi Parva, love, both emotional and physical love, is given freely and without inhibition, living much like the natural world. And so what will happen is that while you live your life, you live your life, you go to either a Naraka or of course, or a heaven-like place. When it's time for you to finally be free of the material world, to enter nirvana, guess what? You get one more chance before you're released to really enjoy life, and you can go to this pure land, right? So this basically the purpose of residing in these places is for celestial Buddhas. The Buddhas are there for self-sacrificial reasons, each one of them representing a Buddhist virtue, such as wisdom or compassion. So this is a happy land, which according to Buddha, he says it is a rich and prosperous, comfortable, fertile, delightful, and crowded with gods and men, with a great variety of flowers and fruits, adorned with jewel trees, which are frequented by flocks of various birds with sweet voices. Next image. So you can see that this is a beautiful abode, a beautiful place. So I want to stress the fact that look at this. This is absolutely beautiful. Okay, so let's look at me for a little bit. So basically, it goes like this. So when you die, you go to a heaven or hell-like place for a minute or a millennium, and then you're reborn again in another life. This happens all the way through in both Hinduism and Buddhism. But in Buddhism, uh, at the very end, where you're supposed to be completely free, you're supposed to maybe, hey, now it's we're out of here. The bubble has burst. It's nirvana. You get a chance to, in between this release into the one, you get a chance to live in a beautiful heaven-like place. So it just doesn't end. Okay, so next image. Let's go to Africa, shall we? For the Yoruba, a little blurred here, but for the Yoruba of West Africa, reincarnation often followed family lines, with a baby born often carrying the soul of someone in the family who just recently passed, and so is now reborn to carry on the family ways and tradition. Common names for children are, for example, Baba Tunda, meaning father has returned, or Yeta Tunda, which means mother has returned. Next image. The Yoruba divides the individual into two parts. You have the physical, called the aura, and the spirit, which is encompassing two aspects. One part known as breath, in which they apply the word emi, which gives the physical body life itself, and the other, head or ori, which enables one to think and communicate. Furthermore, they assert that each person in spirit existed before birth and actually chose their personal identity even before incarnating in human form, thereby meaning that one's identity has a heavenly origin with a distinct plan, and that the ancestors are directly aware of it and can be appeased to in order to remind one here on earth of what one should do. For at the moment of being brought to the earth, the Ori lost all previous memories of one's heavenly existence, and so they had to be reminded by the ancestors. In fact, proceeding further, the Yoruba also believe that the Ori that is within us lived before, and so was, in fact, a reincarnated ancestor. This is why divination is so important to the Yoruba religion. For consulting such oracles opens up a direct line of communication to those very ancestors who knew your identity best, who were present when you were in the form of an ori, only decided upon your personal identity and your fate as well. By the way, so basically, it follows that they believe in basically seven stages of death. Of course, this corresponds to our modern ideas, of pallor mortis, algor mortis, rigor mortis, and so forth, putrefaction, decomposition, skeletonization. They also believe in nine stages of dying. You have, of course, the deathbed, where the soul is prepared and those gather who love them. You have the wake, you have the path to the cemetery, you have the cemetery gates, then you have the path to the grave, and then you have the burial, then you have the funeral rules, and then you have dispelling burdens. This is cleansing the negative energies. And finally, then you have the path to Orun. And this is followed by the nine realms. The nine realms. So here it is. You have the Alrun Apadi. This is a realm for those who cannot be redeemed. They're likened to be a broken vessel, incapable of holding the divine light. And so this is where they go. You have the Orun Baruku. This is the realm for the dishonest. This place is chaotic. And so they face correction here. But the Orun Afefa, this is for the righteous. And this is the place where people are prepared for reincarnation. So, for example, those people, Arun Baruku, uh, those who are dishonest, chaotic, they're going for correction. And once they are corrected, then they will transfer over to the Arun Afefa because now they're moved to righteousness and they're being cleansed. If you're Arun Apadi, however, you cannot be redeemed. You're stuck there forever and ever. Now, this is the Yoruba religion of course, of Western Africa that spreads all over the place. You have also the Arun Astu, which is divine judgment. This is separating the pure from the impure. You have Arun Reri, which is peaceful for those who foster health and harmony and kindness. You got to have a happy realm. Also, the Arun Funfun. This is a spiritual, for those who are spiritual, pure, leading to enlightenment. You have the Arun Alfia. This is for peace and contentment as well. And you have, I'm sorry, you have the Arun Baba. This is for caregivers, protectors, the selfless. And finally, nine, the Arun Mary. This is the highest perfection and union with the God. So this is the Yoruba religion. So you have, once again, you see connections, right? And then you go from this realm back to earth and you're reincarnated again. So here you have a Yoruba religion that is similar to both Buddhism and Hinduism when it comes to these rhythms. Are you seeing some patterns yet? Let's see me for a little bit. Okay, so of course you have the pygmies, right, of South Africa, the Mubi of Central Africa, I should say. They believe that the souls of humans exist before the body is born, sometimes for a very long time, but eventually are incarnated. All the way in Bali, the pregnant mother will ask the village healer to help her in dialogue with her unborn child to discover its identity and purpose in this lifetime and what it did in the previous lifetime. The Australian Aborigines believe the spirit of the child existed before this incarnation. In this dreamtime realm, the father was made aware of the spirit's desire to incarnate before conception, and the mother considered her role to provide a temporary haven for a being with a pre-birth identity. Of course, they thought the spirit entered the fetus about 10 weeks after conception. In the Americas, of course, you have this concept. The Cherokee thought that the soul chooses a family where it is believed its gifts may flourish and where it can complete its cycle of learning. But many indigenous peoples of the Americas will have the form of, well, our ancestors come on back. They return to us again. Okay. So let's go to the next image. Let's go to the Greeks, but this is kind of interesting because you'll see the Egyptians. So now, according to the Greek historian by the name of Herodotus, he says the Egyptians were the first to introduce, he says, and he lived between 484 to 425 BCE. This is Herodotus. He said the Egyptians were the first to introduce, I'm quoting, the doctrine that the soul of man is immortal, but that at the death of the body, it enters into one animal after another, and they are born. Then, when it has gone the round of all creatures of land or sea or air, it enters again into the body of a newborn man. The cycle is accomplished in 3,000 years. 3,000 years. Now, there are certain of the Greeks who have made use of this doctrine, some earlier and some later, as if it were their own. I know their names, but do not write them. So we can gather immediately that during the time of Herodotus, while the belief in reincarnation was certainly amongst the Greeks, as we shall see, that they are attributing to it to the Egyptians, and that many claim that this concept derived from their own ingenuity rather than deriving from Egyptian influence. The kind of reincarnation described by Herodotus is most curious, with the soul first entering into a human and following that lifetime going through the rounds of all the other living creatures for 3,000 years before it returns again to humanity. So basically, after living a human life, you have to live as various animals for 3,000 years? Egypt, as a source for this belief, while it's natural because it did have close ties with the East, especially a trade with the Indian subcontinent, after studying Egyptian beliefs, it's still not that popular as I can see. It seems for the Egyptians that you live your life, you die, and you live in this eternal happy place where the north wind blows. But then again, there's evidence that some Egyptians believe in reincarnation, but at the same time, it's difficult to reconcile. Okay, so next image. Reincarnation was already part of the ancient mystery religions known as Orphism. One of its earliest recognized proponents of that belief was the pre-Socratic philosopher by the name of Pythagoras, 582 to 507 BCE, who, moving from his native Samos off the coast of Asia Minor, ended up finding his own unique school of thought at Crotona, located at the edge of the boot of southern Italy. While he's most popularly known for his theory that numbers constitute the true nature of things, he also believed in the transmigration or the reincarnation of souls. He believed that we needed to get off of what is called the wheel of birth. And so he thought the way off this wheel of birth, of continual birth, life, death, and rebirth going on, is through a very strict asceticism, doing good morals, and a vegetative diet. By the way, Pythagoras also believed in the absolute gender equality and that one must show kindness to animals. It is said also that he had some recollection of some previous lives, and so there you have it. So reincarnation is part of the conversation. Next image. And you have Pindar. Pindar 522 to 443 BCE refers to reincarnation. He says, first of all, Pindar tells how all of humanity is judged in the underworld. And from this judge, the good receive a happy destination, while the wicked receive an evil one. Pindar adds, but as many as have endured for 3 times in either state to keep their souls altogether away from injustice, these traveled the road of Zeus to the tower of Kronos. There the breezes of ocean are wafted about the isles of the blessed. Next image. How about Empedocles? Empedocles, 490 to 430. This one is a little bit more intense and detailed. He is the next in succession to articulate a very strong belief in a reincarnation. And let's see my face a little bit here. This pre Socratic philosopher from the city state of Agrigrentum in Sicily is famous for the assertion that there exists four basic elements of the universe: fire, air, water, and earth. He also asserted that the spiritual forces of love and strife mixes and separates these very elements. In the surviving 450 lines of his religious poem, known as the Katharmoi, Empedocles discusses how souls, defined as daemons or divine beings, fall from the spirit realm into the material realm due to the error of their ways or sin, and so stand condemned for thrice 10,000 years, which could be interpreted as the 10,000 years as believed by Plato later on, or as more likely, as 30,000 years. Apparently, Empedocles believed that the first incarnation of the soul will be as a human, which we saw Herodotus mention, right? He has one of these fallen souls declare as follows. So Empedocles is quoting one of these fallen souls that becomes incarnate in human flesh. It says, "From what honor and from what bliss come I, having left to wander here amongst mortals." He realizes this life here on earth is one of suffering and pain, stating, "I wept and wailed when I saw the unfamiliar country where dwelt murder and wrath and hosts of other misfortunes and parching diseases and decay and floods." Yet he realizes that he is but a divinity locked within this temporary physical shell, saying to all, "I tell you, I am a God immortal, no longer a I'm a God immortal, no longer a mortal." He's just claiming to say this. Yet he is a divinity that is caught by fate to pay his due, realizing he is an exile from the gods and a wanderer who has put his trust in the madness of strife. Following one's initial life as a human, reincarnation in the next life depends on the actions, the morality of the individual. One can become yet another human, or one may become anything from an animal to even a plant, which was viewed by Empedocles as also having souls. In the very last lifetime, if one allowed oneself to become evolved through the process of rebirth, that soul becomes the very highest of humanity, saying that these individuals are often priests, prophets, teachers, physicians, and rulers. After that stage, according to Empedocles, they spring forth as gods, highest in honor, with the other immortals, sharing hearth and table, free from the woes of men, in which they have no part, untouched by fatigue. Well, okay. You didn't know that next image. Next, now Plato. Now, Plato was a firm believer in reincarnation. He attributes his teacher, Socrates himself, believing or at least considering the possibility of reincarnation. In his Phaedo, Plato has Socrates state, "When men have died, are their souls existing in Hades or they not?" Next image. Let's just show, always show Socrates on his deathbed there. Yeah, there he goes. I'll say it again just to have some dramatic effect. So when men have died, are their souls existing in Hades or are they not? There is an ancient story which recurs to our memory that they go from here and exist there, and that they come back again here and are born from the dead. Again, in Plato's Meno, Socrates is made to say, after mentioning that his authority arises from Pindar and other poets, he says, "They say that the soul of man is immortal, and that one time it comes to an end. which they, like the rest of men, call dying. And at another time it is reborn, but it is never finally exterminated. For these reasons, it is necessary to live a life as sinless as possible. For those from whom Persephone receives requital for ancient doom, in the ninth year she gives back their souls again to the sun above. This is kind of an interesting. I'm going to stop here for a second. It's kind of interesting. So this has the fact that you are dead, and Socrates is seeming to say that there's a 9 years between your death and your rebirth. But this will, of course, go against what Plato says later on. But I'm just saying it does appear here that there's 9 years in between. From them grow glorious kings and men swift in strength and great in wisdom, and hereafter they are called spotless heroes by men. He's quoting from Pindar in this one. The soul, then, being immortal and often reborn, and having seen all things, both things here and those on Hades, has learnt everything there is, unquote. And so souls, according to Plato's Socrates and Pindar, must go through reincarnation in order to learn certain lessons of morality, of ethics, of character, so they may triumph over their inherent evil nature. This good spiritual nature versus one's evil material nature stems, of course, from the Orphic mysteries, that next image, that attribute a duality of forces working within the soul, since it is composed of two aspects, that we have a Dionysian or Olympian nature that is pure good from the spiritual realm above, and we also have a Titanic nature, which is pure evil and from the material realm below. The two hold a pitched battle within every soul over a succession of lifetimes and determines one's ultimate fate. Those good and remaining good are released into the realms of the blessed, and those evil and consistently evil, permitting their titanic flesh to dominate them, living solely through the passions and become more and more selfish, and so end up eternally damned, following their cycle of lifetimes into this dark, Tartarus region. So these are some of the possibilities here. So you can see kind of interesting stuff there, right? Okay. So let's go look at me for a little bit. One of the most detailed descriptions of the inner workings of just how reincarnation was thought to operate arrives from Plato's uh, Phaedrus. First of all, Plato believed that ultimately the soul was one of nature, of one essence, and the spirituality of the soul was the very same in property, whether it is be within gods or mortals. Yet from this monolithic singularity, soul stuff radiates outward from the source, and not all of it exists in perfection. Let's go to this next image. Descending down towards the material realm, and once in contact with the realm of physicality, corruption occurs, causing the soul to fall further into the corporeal existence, ultimately forcing these fallen souls to incarnate into human flesh, since no spiritual bodies are available to occupy this level. Therefore, these souls, still with the faculty of reason intact, will inhabit the bodies of humans first, and only from there will they vary their forms dependent on certain circumstances. So we start off again as humans. In fact, Plato goes so far as to state that it is a spiritual law that determines that the very first incarnation of a fallen soul will be that of human. Now, that fallen soul is one with the animal flesh. The passions of the animal form will then constantly war against the spiritual side. So we still have this inherent animal nature that kind of fights us and makes us want to become more beast-like, more animal-like. Does this sound familiar? It sounds like what we already came across when we're talking about Hinduism. Plato assigns this period of constant rebirth of the soul within the material realm to 10,000 years. Each thousand representing, each thousand, so we had 10,000 years, each thousand representing one lifetime and the period of rewards and punishments that follow. So the idea is at 10,000 years, so you basically have 10 lives, and after that life, your first life is over, you got to wait around for 1,000 years, which we'll talk about what happens in between, because what happens in between is you go to either a heaven-like or hell-like place in between each lifetime, just like we saw in Buddhism, just like we saw in Hinduism, just like we saw when it comes to religions of sub-Saharan Africa, for example, the Yoruba. Isn't this interesting? Okay, so what happens is that you end up going to a. Oh, I realize I have my light off of me here. You end up going to a place of rewards or punishments based upon your earthly actions. Let's just see me for a few moments here. To a life suited to life which they lived while they were in the form of man, says Plato. Hence, you live your life, you die, your life is judged, your soul goes to the place you ethically deserve based upon your previous life, whether to a place of punishment or a place of paradise. And then, when the full term of that 1,000 years are up, you are reborn again, and the entire process starts all over again 9 more times, and so equally 10,000 years in all. Of course, the question arises, reborn as what? Plato was privy to a belief that when the soul, after the first lifetime, has to go back to the second through 10th life, they have to first cast lots for what they will return as, whether human or animal, and if human, rich or poor, famous or infamous, common, or and so forth. So Plato's Republic provides even more detail of this casting of lots. For while the casting of lots may determine what station you live in life, you still have the free choice to choose just how to live within that particular station. You may become a great leader by lot, but you have the choice to be good and you have the choice to be a bad leader based upon the character of your soul. Yet throughout this process of reincarnation, some souls just cannot measure up. Failing time and time again after each lifetime, these souls sink further and further into the blind material mire, forgetting their heavenly nature, the spirit selves completely, and are basically determined to be unredeemable. At this point, these souls are considered incurable, condemned to eternal punishment with no hope of regeneration. According to Plato's Gorgias, the judges determining your good or evil actions after every lifetime are the sons of Zeus, Minos, Rhadamenethus, and Aeacus, with the place of judgment described as situated in a meadow. Where is the fork from which leads the two roads? The one to the islands of the blessed, and the others to Tartarus. This same road is described in Plato's Republic, with the one road leading to the right and upward towards heaven. That's a quote. While the other road proceeds to the left and downward. According to Plato, Tartarus, the terrible place, has neither bottom nor foundation. It is a bottomless pit. Still, this is a temporary situation, for after 1,000 years, the reset button is pushed in a sense, and it all begins all over again. But as I mentioned, not completely all over again, for the Greeks and later the Romans believed that you returned, you retain the memory of your previous life on the same level and have acquired the lessons learned, or in the case may not have learned from the summation of your past experiences. These experiences then become part of your soul character and will affect either positively or negatively the lives to come. But in the end, after the final 10th lifetime, your fate will become permanent. Either you will permanently be released from the material world and join the realm of the gods, or you will forever be damned and punished in the material realm. So there's a story that is used in the Republic, and I'll talk about this a little bit, and then we'll move on to the Romans. We're getting there. The famous story regarding Plato's views of the afterlife is regarding in the book 10 of the Republic, although, for, although some of it must be understood as figurative rather than literal. The story begins with a certain dying in battle. Following the collecting of the corpses from the battlefield 10 days later, they discover Ur's undecomposed body. A couple of days later, revives while on his funeral pyre. It's a good time to revive. What do you think? And begins to tell the tale of where he had been while apparently deceased. Traveling with other recently deceased souls, encountered a strange metaphysical crossroads with four openings, two proceeding into and out of the sky, and two proceeding into and out of the earth. Besides these mystical portals were judges who were instructing the souls which directions they were meant to follow. Those considered righteous by the judges were told to proceed to the way leading to the sky, while those who were wicked were told to follow the path leading to the underworld. Yet was made an exception by the judges and given the mission to simply report what he sees to those who were from the land of the living. As he was given his instructions, noticed that while some souls were going up one of the sky portals, other souls were going down through the other one. These souls from the latter opening to the sky, they arrived spotless and pure, telling all about the beautiful places they've seen and how wonderful they felt. Meanwhile, in like harmony, one portal of the earth received souls while the other released them. Those that return from below, they appeared filthy, worn down, exhausted, weeping in utter and complete despair, while all along telling about the horrors they had witnessed and were party to. In fact, each soul was required to pay a tenfold penalty for all the wicked deeds committed while alive. Yet those that emerged were the lucky ones, for many were not permitted to even leave this underworld nightmare, especially those who are killers and tyrants. After a little stay in the meadow of the souls, was instructed to continue his underworld journey and eventually reached a place where he and the accompanied souls could observe a rainbow shaft of light brighter than any they had seen before. Let's go to the next image. This shaft of light that was so beautiful, this prism of spectacular radiance, was known as the spindle of necessity, where Lady Necessity, her daughters, and many sirens occupied. They organized the souls into rows, and where each one was handed a lottery token, except, of course, for Next, each soul was ordered to come before the ladies and choose their next life. Recalled the first to choose a new soul, a man who had not experienced the terrors of the world below, but who had received his rewards in the world above. Unfortunately, he decided to seek power of place in the next life. He decided that, choosing an authoritative dictatorship. Suddenly, a dark realization thrust its weight upon his soul when he realized, to his horror, that he was doomed to commit terrible crimes in the next life, even to eat his own children. According to he beat his breasts, blaming God, the stars, and everyone except himself. In this case, he had been virtuous in the previous life, yet his virtue had been merely customary, without foundation upon a consciously realized principle. Uh, so it's not simply kind of the blind game where, oh, he was given this terrible next life. What happened is his character had not progressed and had not grown. It was on the exterior side, it looked like it was mature, but there's no inner fortitude. Okay, noticed that those who had arrived via the path in the sky chose darker fates for their next life, while the ones who arrived via the path from the earth chose better lives. Most selected lives quite different from their previous lives. Just happened to be accompanying the soul of Odysseus. He declared, I observed how Odysseus reflected upon the hollowness and uncertainty of his fame, the batterings of endless journeys and treacherous adventures. This time, he decided to look for an easier lot with less heartache and tragedy. Sure enough, he picked up the cosmic contract for a quiet man's life, the one that he had been rejected, the one that had been rejected by the other souls. Although Odysseus happened to be the last to make a choice, he said, I would have done the same even if I had drawn the first lot. He also saw the soul of Epius, the son of Panopeus, who was renowned in the Trojan cycle for being a great warrior and for designing the Trojan horse as commissioned by Odysseus and instructed by Athena, as passing into, this is a quote, as passing into the nature of a woman cunning in the arts, a craftswoman. So this man then becomes a woman. So you do have crossing over even when it comes to genders. In another instance, Orpheus recalled how he had been murdered by a woman in his previous life. As a consequence, Orpheus' hatred of women influenced the decision to be reborn as a swan rather than entering a woman's womb. In fact, observed that animals were indeed also present before the spindle of necessity, and hence had souls as well. He noted that these animals often chose human lives, while humans often chose the lives of animals, many of them believing they were much easier than that of being human. I must stress that the choice for the next life, even if it was accomplished through a kind of lottery in this depiction, is still a personal decision. They all had a choice, yet their choices were often made based upon their overall character of their souls. Following the selection process, each individual soul was assigned a deity to help them through this life. Passing the throne of Lady Necessity, the souls and continued on to the plane of oblivion, where the river of forgetfulness or the river of Lethe flowed. Each soul was then required to drink of the water in varying quantities apart from As they drank, each soul immediately forgot everything. As they lay down at night to sleep, each soul was lifted up into the air in various directions for rebirth, completing their journey. According to this entire journey of the soul from this one life to incarnation and the next lasts for 1,000 years. As for the moral of the story, after relating story to a student, Plato explains, thus, Glaucon, the tale was preserved, and if we listen to it, it may preserve us, and we shall cross the river of Lethe without defiling our souls. And if we believe what I say, convinced that the soul is immortal and strong to endure all things, good and ill, we shall ever hold to the upward path and practice justice with knowledge. And when, like victorious athletes, we have won the prize for justice, both here and in the 1,000-year journey we have gone through, we shall indeed fare well. And so there you have it. You can take the image down. What do you think? Well, so I did say this is pretty detailed, right? I didn't know it was this detailed. Yes. So obviously the Greeks and the Romans, we'll go to the Romans right now. And okay, so one of the most famous passages
referring to the realm of the blessed and cursed and reincarnation, uh, uh, follows in Roman tradition, and that is the Aeneid, written by Virgil during the first century BCE, who is Augustus Caesar's personal court composer. Now, this epic became required reading for most pupils learning Latin throughout the Roman Empire in the first century CE, with its text even used for their readers. Once again, one's fate is determined by the action one does in this life. Accordingly, after you live your life, those who stood condemned were judged by, well, actually, what will happen is this, is that when you die, you will cross the river Styx, right? And as you cross the river Styx, of course, Charon will take you to the other side. You want to make sure that you have an oboe, a small coin with you. Make sure you take two because you gotta pay the ferryman as he crosses you to the other side, but you gotta also pay for your return trip, right? And so you cross over, and the first level of the underworld is the realm of the innocents. And so this is two different kinds of people end up here. First of all, you have those people who were judged guilty for crimes they did not commit, and were condemned. They were executed. They will end up at this higher level of Hades, and at which point they're just simply there waiting to be immediately reborn. So they're going to be born almost immediately. So they're not there for very long. And also, the other are, of course, infants who died soon after birth or even before. Those infants enter into this upper level, the realm of the innocents, and they are just simply there waiting temporary, and then they immediately are ensouled. So this relieved many Romans and Greeks before of the fact that if a baby dies, don't worry, they will immediately be born in another as another baby. So the next level down are the suicides. Aeneas, of course, he he kind of messed up with his. Oh, that's another story altogether. But the suicides are at this level. The next level down after that are the realm of the warriors, the shades, so they slowly fade away. And then finally, you get to the great judgment. And so the great judgment, you have Rhadamanthus is the judge in this case in Virgil's Aeneid. And what happens is that basically what happens here is that to his left was Tartarus, where Aeneas hears the terrible sounds of whips, the dragging of chains, the groans of spirits suffering perpetual agony. How one gets on the judge's list demanding condemnation includes crimes related to desertion, of course, typical Roman ones, right? Because as you would expect, because you got to make sure you stay true. Defrauding of an inheritance, accepting bribes, patricide, you don't kill your dad, incest and adultery. If one is condemned, they proceed on the left-hand path, and here they have to face both a fury and a hydra on the way down before they descend into the dark world of Tartarus, which is a hole twice as deep as the earth is distant from the skies, and home of the fallen and now material titans of old. If one is determined to be good in their previous life, the soul gets to experience the pleasures, the bliss of Elysium, experiencing a life of singing, of dancing, of wrestling, of horse racing, of feasting. Between, of course, these designations sits Pluto's or Hades' palace. Let's take a look at these realms just briefly. So here we go, arriving in towards the underworld, and are on your way towards Hades. So if you go next image, so if you go down, there you go. This is Hades. This is the terrible realm. This is the place where they do pour molten lead down your throat because that seems to be a common trope amongst all these belief systems, as a place of suffering and condemnation. Next image. Or you can go to Elysium, which is a place of a lot of pleasure, as you can see here. Next image. We're talking a lot of pleasure. So There you have it. So you can put those down, but I thought that was kind of fun, just getting some peeks into Elysium. Now, in this setting, okay, so you have people now, those who are in Tartarus and those who are Elysium. What happens after that? Well, I'm going to read from the Aeneid to tell you what happens. In this setting, as Aeneas is told by his father Anchises, what follows after one's experience, either in the pleasures of Elysium or the punishments of Tartarus. Concerning those in Tartarus, he states, and this is nicely written. This is in its poetic form, but it's in English, but it follows well after the Latin. It says, so it says as follows. The Aeneid says, "Nor death itself can wholly wash their stains, but long contracted filth, even in the soul remains. The relics of vice they wear, and spots of sin obscene in every face appear. For this are various penances enjoined, and some are hung to bleach upon the wind, some plunged in waters, others purged in fires, till all the dregs are drained, and all the rust expires. All have their manes, and those manes bear the few so cleansed to these abodes repair, and breathe in ample fields the soft Elysium air. Then are they happy, when by length of time the scurf is worn away of each committed crime. No speck is left of their habitual stains, but the pure ether of the soul remains. But when 1,000 rolling years are past, so long their punishments and penance last, while droves of minds are by the driving God compelled to drink the deep Lethean flood, in large forgetful draughts, to steep the cares of their past labors and their irksome years, that unremembering of its former pain, the soul may suffer mortal flesh again." As you can see, while the souls in Elysium are already pure and so gravitating to its happy fate, the souls of those condemned must go through a process of purification in order to cleanse them of their stain, of their bad deeds, of their evil. In this, and we'll use this in Virgil's Aeneid from the first century BCE, excuse me, in this purgatoria, and this is where we get the word purgatory from. This purification occurs through the fires and waters of Tartarus, either burning or washing away the sins of those condemned to reside here. Yet at a certain point, this soul is determined as purified and ready to move on to rebirth. This period in total is also, as you just read, or I just read, 1,000 years between each lifetime. Still, there is one more place the soul has to go. They must go and drink from the rivers of forgetfulness, known as Lethe. And so they will not recollect the direct details of the previous life. The word Lethe means oblivion in Greek and is already referred to at the end of Plato's Republic, describing how the dead arrived at the plain of Lethe, through which the river Amelis or the Careless runs. The rivers Lethe and the Melis, or Oblivion and Careless respectively, are attested in several verse inscriptions on gold plates from the 4th century BCE, especially at Thurii in southern Italy. And so the soul, so desiring these delicious waters or springs of oblivion, will drink and drink until all the memories are washed clean from the mind. However, it must be said that the general character gained during the previous lifetime will be retained, even though the actual memory of how this character or particular character trait, well, good or bad, was gained will be lost for the most part. Anchises, I want to say, next shows his son Aeneas the souls by this river who were destined to become the leaders of Rome. of course, through his own family line, because Aeneas is connected to the line of the Caesars, under the condition, of course, that he fulfills his destiny and bringing the Latins to Italy, which he does. I mean, and they've settled Alba Longa, another story. And so he says as follows: he says, "Now fix your sight and stand intent to see your Roman race, your Julian progeny. The mighty Caesar waits his vital hour, impatient for the world, and grasps his promised power. But next, behold, the youth of form divine, Caesar himself, exalted in his line. Augustus, promised oft and long foretold, sent to the realm that Saturn ruled of old, born to restore a better age of gold." There you have it. Now, so you see, so here you have it again. In the Orphic Mysteries, what will happen is that there are these they have these little gold tablets, by the way, that you're buried with. And what will happen is you read these gold tablets and you learn that rather than reincarnate again, you can get out of reincarnation. And so these gold tablets will tell you how to avoid, after going through, hopefully, Elysium, maybe Tartarus, naming cleanse and being transferred over to Elysium. Because remember, what happens is that when those are condemned to Tartarus, there's a certain amount of time where you are cleansed and you're transferred over to Elysium, and then you're released. If you're really bad, you're there for the full 1,000 years, but both places a full 1,000. But what will happen is that, let's just say, most Orphics believe they go to Elysium. After the 1,000 years has passed, then what will happen is they're supposed to drink from the waters of Lethe. But in the Orphic Mysteries, the golden tablets give you instructions on how to avoid drinking from the waters of forgetfulness and instead drink from the lake of memory. If you drink from the lake of memory as opposed to the waters of forgetfulness, you not only remember your previous life, you remember all your past lives from the beginning. And with that memory, with that realization, you are free from the mortal coil. You are free of this world because you are a child of both of earth and of heaven, of the sky. You are both, of this realm and of the next. But you realize your heavenly aspect, and whew, you're released, much like you saw with moksha in Hinduism and nirvana in Buddhism. Isn't this fascinating? You're seeing connections all over the place. Lots of similarities. Okay. Whew. Okay. Next. Now, I want to say, next image, I must say that the beliefs in reincarnation was not unique to even the Greeks and Romans in the West. It was also, I'm sorry, there's Lathe. I'm sorry, I forgot Lathe. That's funny. I forgot about the waters of forgetfulness. Maybe something happened there. There's Lathe. There she is, making us drink and making us forget. Let's go to the next image. That's great. I love it. There we go. Now, I must say that the beliefs of reincarnation was not unique to even to just the Greeks and Romans in the West. For even the Celts further to the north in Gaul and Britannia believed in this transmigration of souls. According to Diodorus Siculus, lived from 60 BC to 30 CE, the Druids believed, quote, the souls of men are immortal, and that after a definite number of years, they live a second life when the soul passes to another body, unquote. Roughly contemporaneous to Diodorus Siculus, the Greek geographer by the name of Strabo, 63 BCE to 21 CE, likewise mentioned that the Druids believe that, quote, men's souls and the universe are indestructible, although at times fire and water may prevail, unquote. Furthermore, Julius Caesar himself declared of the Celts, quote, they wish to inculcate this as one of their leading tenets, that the souls do not become extinct, but pass after death from one body to another, and they think that men, by this tenet, are in great degrees stimulated by valor, the fear of death being disregarded. What you're seeing right here, known as the Monas diadem, this is from Asturias, it dates from the 4th or 3rd century BCE, and it depicts men turning into birds. This transformation of people turning into animals is common, but some people say it connects to reincarnation. Next image. The Vikings also believed in reincarnation. And so, according to the editor of the Edda poem, Hilga Hajavodasom and his mistress, the Valkyrie Svarva, whose love story is told in various works, were reborn as Helga Hundasbane and the Valkyrie Sigrun. And so you have this, you have other stories of the same sort. So once again, lots of rebirth and so forth. Let us move on to Judaism. Now we're getting into some interesting, well, it's all interesting materials, but let's just take this down for now, and I'll talk a little bit. The great Torah scholar, a commentator, and Kabbalist by the name of Nachmanides, who also known as Raman, who lived from 1195 to 1270, attributed Job's sufferings to reincarnation, as hinted in Job saying, quote, God does all these things twice or three times with a man to bring back his soul from the pit to the light of the living. And so you have that. It's interesting. Ramban believes that Judah and his sons mentioned in Genesis 38:8 knew about reincarnation. I'm not going to go through that very long story, which has some problematic aspects, but you get the idea. Let's go to the next one. In Ecclesiasticus 41, 89, sorry, Ecclesiastes, excuse me. No, Ecclesiasticus, excuse me, 41 to 89. Solomon is made to say that those who fail to follow the Jewish laws shall be born in the next life cursed, stating, if you have forsaken the law and if you will be born again, you will have a curse. Now, I kind of want to go here a little bit. So let's take a look at this passage. So next image. There it is. Yeah, thank you. So we take a look at this passage, and it's Ecclesiasticus. Now, Ecclesiasticus, it dates from between 196 to 175 BCE. It is in the Septuagint, which is the Septuagint that is shared by Catholic and Orthodox, so it's in the Apocrypha. By the way, Lutherans and Anglicans have this Ecclesiasticus too. It's also known as Sirach, so 41 to 89. And you take a look at this, and you say, so you go here, it says, woe be unto you, ungodly men, which have forsaken the law of the Most High God. And it says, and if you be born, you shall be born to a curse. And if you die, a curse shall be your portion. So what happens is that, again, if you shall be born, you will be born to a curse. And if you die, a curse will be your portion. So you're going to have people say, well, this has to deal with progeny. This doesn't have to do with a successive life. So what will happen is that in modern translations, they will manipulate the translation. They're so bothered by it. And so modern translations of it, it will be as follows. If you have children, calamity will be theirs. If you begot them, it will only be for groaning. Well, guess what? It doesn't say that. Take a look. Kai A. There's Ganesthe. That doesn't say anything about children. That's put in there because it made people nervous. They wanted to make sure that you didn't see that in there. But it says, if you know your Greek, take a look. You see the Kai A, right? So if you shall be born, you are born, you will be born to a curse, and if you die, a curse will be your portion. It will, the idea of it continuing on. And so this has been a point of contention amongst many scholars to the point where they'll change the translation. Just be comfortable, leave it the way it is. I don't know. I just think that's kind of a good idea. Let's go um, anyway to the next image. The Jewish historian Flavius Josephus, living between 37 and 93, believed in reincarnation. Writing in his Jewish Antiquities, he says, the bodies, this is this Jewish writings right here. Um, Jewish historian, the bodies of all men are indeed mortal and are created out of corruptible matter. But the soul is ever immortal and is a portion of the divinity that inhabits our bodies. Do not you know that those who depart out of this life according to the laws of nature enjoy eternal fame, that their houses and posterity are sure, that their souls are pure and obedient, and obtain a most holy place in heaven? From whence, in the revolution of ages, they are again sent into bodies, while the souls of those whose hands have acted madly against themselves are received by the darkest places in Hades. Ooh, okay, you didn't expect that, did you? Next image. How about the Talmud? Right, all right. The Talmud. According to the Talmud, all who are virtuous, including Gentiles, may enter the life to come, but God first must judge them. If they are completely righteous, they will immediately enter Olam Haba, translated as the world to come. But with this said, most do not enter this realm immediately, but have to go through a long life review process where the soul is reschooled to realize all the mistakes made along the way and thereby gaining the necessary wisdom to pass on to the realm of happiness and bliss. It is said that this review period does not last longer than 1 year. As for those who are beyond the ability to be taught, those who are so completely evil to the core, basically their soul simply becomes extinct. Moses Maimonides even taught that the spirit simply inhabits this body, but does not continue on in the afterlife. Yet others believe that this review period could lead to an extension into yet another life, or possibly a second or third, or even more. Next image. Okay, actually, that's the Zohar. Let's just take that down. The work known as the Bahir. All right, so we're here at okay. So the here, this is a work of the Kabbalah, appeared around 1176 in Provence. Anyway, is attributed to the first Jewish sage by the name of Nehemiah ben Chana, and discusses reincarnation too. He pondered why bad things happen to good people and came to the conclusion that this could be a carryover from a past life. He says, why is there a righteous person to whom good things happen, while another righteous person has bad things happen to him? This is because the latter righteous person did bad in the previous life and is now experiencing the consequences. What is this like? A person planted a vineyard and hoped to grow grapes, but instead sour grapes grew. He saw that his planting and harvest were not successful, so he tore it out. He cleaned out the sour grapevines and planted again. When he saw that his planting was not successful, he tore it up and planted it again. In the Zohar, which is a mystical text collected together around the 13th century CE, the place known as Gehenna, so often associated with punishment, was actually a place for the purification of souls. But in some cases, this purification is understood to lead to another life on this earth. Evidence of reincarnation is found throughout the Zohar, where at one place this sacred text declares, as long as a person is unsuccessful in his purpose in this world, the Holy One, blessed he be, uproots him and replants him over and over again, unquote. In another place, the Zohar says, All souls are subject to reincarnation. That's pretty blatant. And people do not know the ways of the Holy One, blessed be he. They do not know that they are brought before the tribunal, both before they enter into this world and after they leave it. They are ignorant of the many reincarnations and secret works which they have to undergo, and of the number of naked souls, and how many naked spirits roam about in the other world without being able to enter within the veil of the king's palace. Men do not know how the souls revolve like a stone that is thrown from a sling, but the time is at hand when these mysteries will be disclosed. Okay, that's pretty straightforward. According to the Zohar, those souls that did not complete their purpose are brought back again in another body to do so. Rabbi Yossi answered, those bodies which are unworthy and did not achieve their purpose will be regarded as though they had not been. Rabbi Yitzhak disagrees and says, for such bodies, the Holy One will provide other spirits, and if found worthy, they will obtain an abiding in the world, but if not, they will be ashes under the feet of righteous. Unquote. As for how many times the soul gets to complete its purpose, the answers vary. While the Zohar, chapter 321, 216a, and the Tukuni Zohar, chapter 6, 22b and 3276b, appear to suggest that a soul is given 3 or 4 times. It could be much, much more. One passage in the Tukni Zohar indicates the soul could be given as many as 1,000 opportunities so that they could complete a certain life task. The Zohar tells the story of a righteous person who suffers as he travels from house to house, even city to city, trying to get those to listen to him and his teaching, and compares this experience with a person who goes through many reincarnations. This is from the Zohar Chadash Taknum 107a. According to the Zohar, even a husband and wife can reincarnate again together, as mentioned in the Zohar 2 106a. The Zohar teaches that the deceased must be buried as soon as possible, or it does affect the soul's future life. Quote, after the soul has left the body and the body remains without breath, it is forbidden to keep it unburied. For a dead body which is left unburied for 24 hours causes a weakness in the limbs of the chariot and prevents God's designs from being fulfilled. For perhaps God decreed that he should undergo reincarnation at once on the day that he died, which would be better for him. But as long as the body is not buried, the soul cannot go into the presence of the Holy One, nor be transferred into another body, for a soul cannot enter a second body till the first one is buried. Zohar 388b. So maybe slightly within Jewish thought. Um, the famous Kabbalist Rabbi Isaac Luria, 1534 to 1572, also known as Ari or Arizo, taught that every Jew was to fulfill 613 mitzvahs, and if he's unable to do so, will simply have to return in the future life to do so. The concept of reincarnation is found amongst Ashkenazi, Jewish, and much Yiddish literature goes into it. And of course, with reincarnation known as Gilgal. Most Orthodox Siddurim or prayer books have a prayer asking for forgiveness for one's sins that one may have committed in this Gilgal or the previous one. So, once again, does Judaism have any references to reincarnation? Yeah. Let's move on to Christianity. Next image. Okay. Yes, we're getting there. Amongst the verses interpreted as referring to reincarnation in the New Testament is Matthew 17, 10 through 13. And the disciples asked him, saying, why then do the scribes say that Elijah must come first? But he answered them and said, Elijah indeed is to come and will restore all things. But I say to you that Elijah has already come, and they did not know him, but did to him whatever they wished. And so also shall the Son of Man suffer at their hands. Then the disciples understood that he spoke of John the Baptist. Well, John the Baptist, and some believe that he is Elijah again. Of course, this is viewed as a fulfillment of Malachi 4 or 5. Behold, I will send you Elijah the prophet before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord, unquote. The perspective here is that Jesus is asserting that John the Baptist maybe is the reincarnation of Elijah or connected to Elijah. Of course, other interpretations are inclusive of typology, that John the Baptist is a type of Elijah and so is a symbol. But you can see where still many Jews, if you read the New Testament, will still think that, hey, maybe this, Jesus is Elijah coming back, right? The fact that Elijah's coming back. Moving on, next image. Another perceived support for the idea of reincarnation in the New Testament occurs in John 9:2. Remember, these are perceived ideas, not saying they're for sure. I'm just saying these are ideas that were read even by the early church as supporting these ideas. We'll talk about those people in a few seconds. Don't worry. Here, Jesus declares of the blind man, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? Well, he's born blind. So who sinned? This man or his parents? You see, the question was brought up that how could the blind man sin before he was born unless he lived prior to this life and sinned at this point? Some say that one particular Jewish sect must have believed that a baby could sin in the womb and that Jesus is addressing this possibility. But no such Jewish sect has been discovered, and the explanation, well, this was really a stretch. Maybe there's some other explanation we're not aware yet. Still, Jesus did decline the general presumption, whatever it might be, by declaring, neither this man nor his parents sinned, but this happened so that the work of God might be displayed in his life. Whatever that intention is, it's still, even though at this point Jesus appears not to believe it, it still shows that the Jews at that time believed the possibility. And once again, this is reincarnation, and we see this, of course, in Jewish writings. We go to the next. Here we go. But the early Christians teach reincarnation. Yes, next image. So, this is an image that's connected to later on an interpretation of Origin of Alexandria. And I'm going to go into this in detail. I just want you to see this flashy dashy image about the idea of apokatastasis, or the restoration of all things. So, but let's see me as we go through this. So Origin, we're going to go into detail on Origin, and then a little bit, a few other Christians, and then we'll jump into Islam, which we'll conclude. So we're getting towards the end now, but I just want to mention we got to talk about Origin. It is, of course, it is only to be expected that the idea of reincarnation entered into Christian thought at a certain point, most notably as found within the writings of Origen of Alexandria. Origen lived from 185 to 254 CE. He's considered one of the most systematic theologians and philosophers of the Christian church, even writing the first Orthodox commentary on the Gospel of John. Origen believed in the concept known as apokatastasis, apokatastasis, or the restoration of all things, whereby the universe starts from a singularity of that which is identified as God and expands into a plurality, only to eventually retract back into a singularity through the irresistible pull of the divine gravity. And this divine gravity is described in human terms as love. This followed, of course, the Stoic idea of Zeus creating through the Logos, through the power of fire. But as the fire expands and retracts, so too the universe expands and retracts according to a fixed cycle. When the time is up, this contraction or convulcation, ectoperosis, destroys the universe, but only temporarily. Or then, with all things contained together again, the universe once more expands out. Now, this reestablishment or recreation of the universe, again, I said was known as apokatastasis. Origen accepts the Stoic cosmogony of how the cosmos operates through its own logical deductions and made it part of his Christian spiritual architecture, but he does avoid the destruction part. So now for Origen, all souls, originally existed outside of time and space, forming a collective of rational beings called logica that were still limited in number. They were not infinite because they were all intended to be unique and close in proximity to God, where they were to gaze upon the beauty and wisdom and majesty of God and explore the infinite mysteries of his being. In Origen's perspective, all souls are eternal, even from the standpoint of preexistence. As he notes in his De Principis, he writes, the soul has neither beginning nor end, unquote. The idea of the preexistence of souls was not simply origin of early, it's actually not a new Christian idea. In fact, Justin Martyr, who's considered Orthodox by Catholics to this day, believed this, who lived from 100 to 165 CE and talks about it in his writings that are part of the Catholic tradition. And Clement of Alexandria, who's also considered an important saint who lived from 150 to 220. And so this idea of the soul's preexistence, our soul's preexistence, is part of Christian thought and part of Orthodox Christian thought, as well, Greek Orthodox too, but I'm talking about Catholic Orthodox perspectives. Now, moving right along. Here we go. However, when God gave these souls the ultimate gift, God gave the souls freedom. Some of these souls lapsed in their contemplation and began to fall. Origen even goes on to say that the soul of Christ was not unique from the souls that fell away from God, all having the same choice of intimate contemplation and communication with the ineffable source of all things. But Christ alone exercised the power of free choice to remain contemplating the eternal one, while all the other souls made the choice through their freedom to leave the realm of God. Now, these souls, these suke, distracted with their freedom, became cold as they left the divine warmth of God, he says in the first principles. Falling to the material realm, these souls became clothed in bodies. So at first, they were a fine, ethereal, they had a fine, ethereal, invisible nature. As they kept on falling, their bodies changed from this fine, ethereal, invisible body to a body that is coarse, that is of more of a solid state. The purity and subtleness of the body with which the soul is enveloped depends upon, of course, the moral development and perfection of the soul, and it goes through the various degrees. And so what happens is the soul falls. Origen asks, is it not rational that souls should be introduced into bodies in accordance with their merits and previous deeds? Yet the soul was not fated to remain within the material realm forever. For Origen believed that eventually each soul, so attracted by God's love, will return to what it was originally composed of, having an attraction encoded directly within its spiritual nature, within the soul itself, to this spiritual realm. For like attracts like in essence. Yes, of course, Origen believed this process could and would take several lifetimes through various incarnations. Hence, Origen did not believe that the suffering of sinners in hell was eternal in an infinite sense, but eternal in this lifetime sense, and that after a certain period of time in the next age, that person would return to go through life again until eventually their soul would be saved. Wait, we heard this before, didn't we? Yeah, we sure did. So basically, when you die, you probably, well, yeah, you go to a paradise or you go to hell, and then you're purified and you come back again and you live your life and then you do it again and again until you return. We saw this amongst the Greeks. We saw this amongst the Hindus. We heard this in the Buddhists. We saw this, and we see this now in this form of Christianity. It's pretty amazing, right? Now, Origen believed that all souls, every last one, would eventually be saved, would eventually rise back to the one who is God. This process of purification may take innumerable ages, but God's love was irresistible. In fact, even in the end, Satan would succumb to this power and would be restored to good and to the realm of blissful contemplation around God. Origen's doctrine of reincarnation or transmigration of souls is called metempsychosis in Greek. As noted by Origen and others who knew his doctrine well, there exists some sort of continuity between the present body and the body of the ages to come. This connection was maintained and continued to be maintained. Jerome actually mentions this as well. And at this point, I want to say that many believe that this viewpoint is orthodoxy. They do. Many. In fact, many Christians believe this. We have their writings. Of course, other Christians also embrace reincarnation, namely the Gnostic sects, including the Valentinians, the Ophites, the Ebionites. The Gnostic sage Basilides asserted that gnosis or knowledge was a consummation of many lives of effort. The exegesis of the soul discusses a pre existing soul that incarnates into the material world, but they are drawn to heaven like rays of light from the sun. In the secret book of John, describes how the soul reincarnates over and over again until, quote, it is saved from its lack of perception, attains gnosis, and so is perfected, after which it no longer goes into another flesh, unquote. A reference to reincarnation is even found in the Gospel of Judas, where Jesus supposedly says to Judas, you will sacrifice the man that clothes me. And so you have it. Going back to Origen, because he was very popular, I want to say that Origen's basis of his ideas was the fact that if God is all powerful, all knowing, then therefore God's love also must be irresistible. There's no way to resist it, making this logical deduction. By the way, while many groups will declare his ideas as heretical, he's not officially heretical by many within the East and West, to the point where you have to wait until the year 553 CE until he is declared as heretical during the time of Justinian at the Council of Constantinople. And so that's 553. So that means within the church, from the second century all the way to 553, a lot of Christians felt free to believe in reincarnation. It was not a problem when it comes to many of them. Now, next image, the belief reincarnation for Christianity continued into the latter part of the fourth century, with Jerome most famous for preparing the translation work that would soon give birth to the Latin Vulgate, stating in his letter to Demetrius that some contemporaneous Christian sects taught reincarnation, quote, as a traditional truth which was not to be divulged, unquote. Proceeding into the 5th century, Bishop Snesius, that you see here, of Ptolemais, who, by the way, was a student of Hypatius of Alexandria, taught reincarnation. He's a Christian, he's a bishop, taught reincarnation with one of his prayers reading as follows. He says, Father, grant that my soul may merge into the light and be no more thrust back into the illusion of earth, unquote. In some of his other hymns, he prays that his soul may be purified so he won't have to be reborn back on earth to start all over again. Mostly notable in his hymn number 3. In one of his works on dreams, Nicias writes, "It is possible by labor in time and transition into other lives for the imaginative soul to emerge from this dark abode," unquote. So there you have it. So it does, this idea does continue on. Okay, and you're thinking, okay, one last area, and it will become very unexpected, and that is, and it'll be very short, and that's Islam. Next image. This is a recent article. Nawar Nasser, a 78-year-old member of the Syrian Druze community, holds a creased black and white photo that he says shows him on horseback in a previous life before he died. The Druze religion holds that reincarnation is a path to spiritual purification. Next image and final image of today. And you can see here, these are candles lit at a shrine in southern Syria, connected to a person's life, but also his life's before and after and onward. So let's talk here about the Druze. Yes, Islam. Of course, you can look at me now. That's good. Thank you. And that's the, of course, last picture. So we're almost there, right? So what happens here is as follows. Of course, Islam might be the very last place you would think to find a belief in reincarnation, but there is a certain sect that does incorporate such a belief, those known as the Druze, who live mostly in Lebanon, but also parts of northern Israel and Syria too. Like all Muslims, the Druze believe in only one God and so are firmly monotheistic. Without question, the Druze holds the Quran to be the absolute inherent sacred truth, but they also believe this holy text contains an inner esoteric meaning that they are privy to. A series of Druze religious texts called the Kitab al-Hakim, translated as the Book of Wisdom, exist. And while they recognize the same major prophets as other Muslims, such as Adam, Noah, Abraham, Moses, Jesus, and Muhammad, they claim that each of these major prophets had minor prophets who in turn had 12 disciples. Including amongst these prophets, say the Druze, were Seth, Enoch, Daniel, Plato, and Hermes Trismegistus. Yes, Greek philosophers and mystics. Each of these prophets, while fully human, were without sin and could be prayed to intercede, much like saints amongst the Shiites and, of course, Christians who are Catholic. The Druze claim as inspiration, and leaders of the Druze were known as the eight sacred of the Druze order, who are Pythagoras, Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, Democritus, Parmenides, Empedocles, and Plotinus. Yes, this is a belief in Islam today, right now, and they hold these. One of their concepts, one of their excerpts, one of their excerpts proclaim, quote, "Blessed with the grace of eternity is he who believed, and thus was secured, and so entered the city of beauty, and sat on the divans of Pythagoras, the numerical, Socrates, the village of the aeons, Plotinus, the light, Plato, the shadow, Aristotle, the cause, Parmenides, the eternal, Democritus, the secured, and Empedocles, the overflow." However, they believed that the concepts of heaven and hell as spiritual in nature, with, quote, "heaven is the ultimate happiness the soul encounters when it unites and meets its creator. Hell is the bitter feeling of being deprived endlessly of the glorious presence of the mighty." And most shocking of all, the Druze believe in reincarnation, with after a certain amount of lifetimes, the soul joins with the universal mind called Al-Akal Al-Kuli, based upon their metaphysical understandings for how the world operates, based on their allegorical readings of the Quran and Greek philosophers. The Druze viewed reincarnation as only logical. So they believe that you live multiple lifetimes. The Druze have developed 4 steps of deductions regarding reincarnation. First, the body. of the image of Adam made by God is the express form of the soul that cannot exist without it. Second, the soul is still eternal. Third, the body by nature is mortal and so died. Fourth, continual birth, death, and rebirth is a sequence of bodies. It is necessary to carry on the soul. And so there's quite a bit on these ideals. I guess even the three Abrahamic religions have this concept. Many of the Sufi texts Sufi sects within Islam, mystical form of Islam, will also seem to have, in many cases, connections or beliefs of reincarnation. And again, even beyond the truths, and this again is within Islam. And so wow, and you see consistency pretty much everywhere, right? um, so you have, I will close with a few words here. Um, of course, the Sufi will say, the soul is a stream whose water disappears into the sands of the desert. Once the soul surrenders itself into the arms of the wind and loses itself within it, it will be borne aloft and lifted over the sands and into the clouds. Then it will fall as rain and become a stream again. Its true essence will never be lost. William Wordsworth, uh, he said that our birth is but a sleep and a forgetting. The souls that rises with us, our life's star, hath had elsewhere its setting and cometh from afar. And of course, the Arab poet Khalil Gibran, 1883 to 1931, he popularized the theme of reincarnation. He says, a little while, a moment of rest upon the wind, and another woman shall bear me. And so we have it. That's a wrap. When it comes to reincarnation, you can see that while a large portion of even the five major religions will at least connect to ideas connected to reincarnation, it's hard to escape. It seems to be irresistible. But what you may have noticed during this journey is the very fact that it's not straightforward. When you live your life and you die, you go directly to the next life. In fact, it turns out that the majority of these traditions will have a space in between where you go to a heaven like or a hell like place, where you receive some further reinforcement to your activities, or or maybe rewards, right? Rewards and punishments. And so there you have it. And hopefully, when you come back to this life, you would have remembered those lessons from the previous one. And of course, that period in between when these concepts are reinforced. And so you have it there. So you have these concepts. Um, and the fun part is there's actually a lot more on reincarnation. But then again, we would be here all night long. So quite a bit there. So I don't want to repeat myself because that seems to be there's a little irony there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to conclude and say I hope that we've all taken something from this. One more thought I can't resist, and that is so many of them have the idea. In fact, almost all of them has this idea that you when you enter into this life, you had a previous life that so often you forget the previous life, but still the lessons from that life are built deeply within your character. And so you need to be intuitive enough to understand what those are. Now, in some cases, some claim that they remember the previous life too. But still, as a main aspect, the spiritual architecture has you're supposed to forget as far as in a very of the details in overt sense, and of course many different religions go around to say, well, there's maybe ways that you can recollect, but once you remember that all your past lives, you're out of here. according to many beliefs. Well, okay, so there you have it. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a great evening, and I'll see you next time.